Welcome to the Hibiscus Health and Validation Institute webinar that covers a validated real-world approach to cardiometabolic screening. Our speakers today are Kavi Misri, founder and CEO of Hibiscus Health, and Al Lewis, founder and CEO of Validation Institute. I will hand it over to them now.
And the number I want to share with you guys today is 67%. That is the percentage of employees we've scanned who showed cardiometabolic risk. And what's more concerning is that they had no idea about their risk. Before I go further, quick question for the group. Who has had metabolic labs in the past year? If you have, feel free to use the Zoom raise your hand button function. Okay, that's typically what we see. So that gap you're seeing is exactly the issue. Industry completion rates for biometric screening are about 15 to 20%, which means 80% or more of your covered lives are never screened at all. From an employer's perspective, that means the majority of your population is effectively invisible from a risk standpoint. And I'll be honest, I'm in healthcare with a congenital heart defect, and even I put off my annual labs. I live in New York City, so for me, that means getting in a cab, going to LabCorp, sitting in a waiting room with poor Wi-Fi, and losing half a day. For a busy professional, that's friction. For a shift worker, it's a non-starter. So the system isn't failing because employees don't care. It's failing because the experience doesn't fit how people actually live and work. So the question we asked when building Hibiscus Health was, what would screening look like if it actually fit into real life for all of your employees? And another question, how many of you have used your phone already today? Maybe you've sent a text, checked the weather, paid a bill, made a dinner reservation for the weekend, perhaps. Everything we do today happens through this device. And in the same way, your phone can show what you're actually trying to discover or what you're trying to access your email, it can also be used to check your core health signals. In 30 seconds from wherever your employees are and whenever they want, no needles, no appointments, no disruption to the workday. That's what Hibiscus does. And as far as the results, across our existing deployment sites, in just the first email to employees, we see 40% of the company completing the scan. And with each additional email, we see about 10% more. So in total, we get about 60 to 70% of the company completing the screen and becoming aware of their well-being and health risks. From there, we see another 70% of those that do the scan opt in to schedule an appointment with one of our dietitians, effectively having an impact on almost half of your employees to avoid escalated risk. And before I show you how it works, I want to bring in Al. Al Lewis has spent his career holding the wellness industry accountable to real outcomes. Al, I'll hand it to you.
Well, yes, that is, first of all, everybody can hear me. That is absolutely the case. I have a blog post called They Said What, where during the heyday of the biometric screening, let's line employees up, the so-called pry, poke, and prod programs, where you line them up, then you had somebody tell them all their risk factors, and then you scared them, and they got a whole bunch of unnecessary tests. Huge expense, did not work. I am probably more responsible than anybody for the demise of that particular sector of the business, having driven a couple of the companies out of business myself. Now, so when I met these folks, it was at a conference, a U-Powered conference in Savannah a couple months ago, and I was running this Shark Tank where there was real money at stake, my money. So I wanted to make sure that the best vendor won. Now, the way it worked was half of the money was the judges, and the other half was the attendees voting on a voting app. And I met Kavi ahead of time, and I told him, I was honest. I said, look, I hate screening. There's no way I'm going to vote for you folks. I just want you to know that in advance because I wanted to be honest. Well, they got up and presented, and in fact, I did not vote for them. And the judges actually picked a different vendor, but the audience on their app overwhelmingly, overwhelmingly selected Hibiscus Health. So I figured, well, if I'm forced to invest in these people, I might as well go see what I invested in. So I go over there, I look at this screen, they tell me I can get my blood values in 30 seconds. I'm like, yeah, right. And I looked at the screen and they got my blood values. I mean, they got my HbA1c within 1/10. They got my blood pressure within about 5 to 10 on each, 5 on the diastolic, 10 on the systolic. And we're got the good ranges on the cholesterol and whatnot. So I not only invested, I actually doubled my investment from what I had to do because I was so impressed with these people. They have done for screening what Cologuard has done for colon screening and colonoscopies.
Thanks, Al. And that was really an eye-opening experience for us, having a group of an audience at the conference of about 200 benefit brokers and advisors who voted for us. Out of the four companies, I think we received about 60% of the total votes. So it was really interesting to see how we were able to really persuade, but also align with what the benefit brokers were looking for their employer clients. And some of the things that we do look for that we are able to detect with the face scan is your overall cardiovascular disease risk. That is based on a score of your other vitals. But using your face data and the data that we collect from your face, we can get your blood pressure, your hemoglobin A1C risk, as Al mentioned, as well as your cholesterol risk, your triglyceride risk, and also your heart rate. So really, we're doing a really quick and important workup on your cardiometabolic health to get you to understand where you are and then take you to the next step. And before we try this, I really want to quickly show you what your employees will experience. This is a quick, non-invasive face scan that takes about 30 seconds. It works on a phone, it works on a computer, and we even have a kiosk that can be planted in the break room or somewhere in the office. So while your employees are microwaving their lunch or getting coffee, they can check their blood pressure or their vitals discreetly. So there's no prep, there's no fasting, there's no scheduling. For most employees, it feels more like taking a selfie than anything in healthcare. We know privacy is always appropriately top of mind. We are HIPAA compliant in all that we do. More importantly, no facial images are actually stored. So we do not collect, nor do we store any facial images. What we do is we only look at the pixelation of waveforms in the cheek. And that is the data that we use to analyze an employee's risk. The signals are derived, they're never retained. No data is shared without consent. And no data is used in order to train our algorithm. So data comes in, goes into the AI model, and then it's gone from there. The only place that it is stored is in the app, where the patient can actually see how they're progressing or regressing over time. So they can actually see their values plotted on a monthly or weekly basis. And this was all built to meet enterprise expectations from day one. So this is what what I'd like to do is for us to go ahead and take the scan. But first, actually, this is what an employee would see after the scan. And then we can actually spend some time taking the scan as it may take about a minute. So the goal is simple. What we want employees to know is really where do they stand? What should they do next? And that is really critical because it's an important point for interpreting the results. And unlike a traditional lab result where you get from your doctor, where they just either don't call you because your vitals are okay, or they call you with if you have a high A1C and let you know that you should probably exercise or eat better. That's pretty much all the guidance you're going to get. But with us, we actually provide longitudinal care and walk you through your results. So that is a critical piece of why we engage the population and we keep them engaged in our process. And as Al mentioned, Cologuard is a really good comparison to us. It's a good comparable because Cologuard will tell you you don't have cancer with quite high certainty, but it is intentionally sensitive. And with even a slight signal, it will tell you to go get a colonoscopy. And in the same way, with us, we will tell you to go get a lab test. So there's more certainty that something is irregular or there is some sort of risk. And the face scan is designed to be highly sensitive. It will either say you're likely fine, or more importantly, you're not fine, and you should go get this lab test. From an employer's perspective, that's the right trade-off. You're not replacing labs at all, and you're not replacing care. So just so we can level set there, this is where we're dramatically expanding who actually gets to the point of needing one. So what I like to say is that we really are able to get de novo populations who are not currently part of the healthcare ecosystem into the funnel and allow them to screen with just a selfie and then know what their risks are and get them the next step or the next step in care so they know what they can get the care and know exactly what to do next. It is so important to understand that we are focused on getting them into the care system. And so with that, we'll have you try this directly.
And while they're doing that, a couple of things come to mind. The old, first of all, it's vastly less expensive, as you might imagine. And when I, who run the Validation Institute, did the validation, one of the guarantees is that either your screening costs will go way down, or if they don't go way down, it's because you have more people being screened, as Kavi said. The people, and typically the people who won't be screened, if you line them up to be screened because they're concerned about privacy and whatnot, they are the ones who will be much more likely to do this. So you're getting the exact population you want.
Yep, and with that, hopefully some of you have already tried, but I do want to do something a little different and fun on this call, and would invite you all to try the face scan on your own. And yesterday I had a full blood panel drawn. I got the results this morning, so I am actually going to do the scan live myself, and I invite you all to take out your phone and scan the QR code. This is essentially the same experience your employees would have. So no app, no login, just a browser. I'll pause for about a minute while everyone has a chance to try. And I'll also do the scan so we can get the results.
I myself just did it this morning, and I've waived all my HIPAA rights.
Yeah.
So if you would like to share both my screen this morning and my last HbA1c, that would be great. All right, so if you wanted to take a look at this, let's just do the HbA1c thing, because that to me, that's my highest risk factor. I think it's up at the top. I think it's up at the very top, isn't it? Oh, there it is. You got it. You had it right. So if you look at the little crosshatch, now, Kavi, you are not allowed by FDA regs to actually say what the HbA1c is without permission.
That's
Uh,
correct.
so
So,
you have put the little
mhm.
crosshatch there. Now, in
Yep.
my case, the crosshatch shows it at slightly into the orange, which would be slightly into pre-diabetic. If you look at my list of my overtimes there, I am slightly below slightly. I always refer to myself as borderline, borderline. So I'm getting about a 5.6 on the blood test. I was getting about a 5.8 here. However, in the last 2 months, my wife broke her ankle, and we have not been eating at home remotely as much as usual. Been doing a lot of takeout, a lot more junk. And I don't know how many of you live in the Northeast, but the weather's been really cold. So a lot of ultimate frisbee games have been canceled, and that's how I work off my sugar. So I would totally expect that if I went in for a lab test tomorrow, which I'm not going to do because I'm in a new insurance and they're charging me for it now,
Yep.
I would show up at essentially exactly the same 5.8 that I'm showing up here.
Yep, and Al, I think this is a great representation. And what we see is that our algorithm is about 85 to 90% accurate on the cholesterol, triglycerides, and hemoglobin A1C. It's 98% accurate on the blood pressure and the heart rate. So, and as Al mentioned, we are not allowed to show the actual number of the A1C or the cholesterol or triglycerides because of FDA regulations. We can show the blood pressure, which is similar to what WHOOP has done and the guidance that was released with in regards to WHOOP. So what we show is actually an indication of where you may fall. So on the hemoglobin A1C, anything above a 55% signals that you're at a 5.7 or more. And this actually got Al almost perfectly at 59. So that would put Al at a 5.8 or so. I mean, I've seen so many of these that I can actually tell what the A1C is in correlation to the percentage. And then on the cholesterol, the triglycerides, it seems that triglycerides is slightly higher, which is the same case as myself. And then the cholesterol is pretty good. Heart rate is good as well. I can share mine as well.
I don't just for the
Yeah,
record, just in case
yeah.
anybody's, keeping score at home here. That heart rate is damn good. That's an ultimate frisbee heart rate you're looking at there,
There you
my friend.
go. Yeah, and I wish I had that heart rate, to be quite frank. But yes, and I just did the scan and I had blood work this morning, so we can share mine. So in my case here, blood pressure is a little high because I just did this in front of almost 100 people. So we have a high blood pressure. My A1C, so you can see on the left are my results. But more importantly, I think the triglycerides is the one that I want to point out. As you can see with my triglyceride risk on my scan on the right, it's about a 52.5. So that 52.5 kind of puts me in the orange, which is a little bit of elevated risk. So it's close to the triglycerides because that shows that I'm actually I'm borderline on the triglycerides. All of my other vitals are okay. And unlike Al, I don't have a 50 beats per minute, but probably I'm kind of really with this webinar, my heart is beating a little faster than normal. So as you can see, we get pretty close, and we are able to, more importantly, get that employee to really take the next step. Because once you see you're in that yellow, you're in that orange or that red, you know you're at risk. And that's where the next step happens. Um, and we can, and so usually when employees, and I hope you guys have also seen your results, and happy to, you can feel free to email us after if you'd like us to review it. But it's really, as you scroll down on your results, you'll see an option to email the results. You can just click email result and it'll be sent to you, and it'll actually explain it. So that's really what employees see with their results. And the first reaction is usually, okay, this seems important, but what do I actually do with this? And that's exactly why the clinical layer matters. So we don't just do the scan, we provide the clinical care for longitudinal care. because insight without interpretation doesn't actually change behavior. This is where the care guide and clinical support come in. Our clinicians, who are doctors, nurses, dietitians, help translate this into something actionable. What actually matters versus what is noise is what we deliver. What should they act on now versus monitor over time is what they'll get out of the sessions. And what's the right next step, whether that's lifestyle change, labs, or follow-up care. And just to be clear, this isn't just for high-risk individuals. This is for your broader employee population, people who are working, busy, trying to stay healthy, but don't always know what to do with this type of information. Now, we obviously provide that clinical support at Hibiscus, but we also recognize that many of you already have thoughtful clinical partners in place, and we're designed to work with that. We can share the underlying face scan data with your existing partners as you consent, whether that's a health plan, a care management vendor, or another solution, and they can own the results review and ongoing coaching. So this isn't about replacing anything you have. It's about making sure more of your covered lives actually get to the point where that clinical support can be used. At the end of the day, this turns a quick screening moment into something that actually leads to action. And what you're looking at here is one of the most important parts of the experience. Instead of a one-time snapshot, employees have access to our engaging mobile app that allows them to see data trends over time. So they can see, am I improving? Am I stable? Is something moving in the wrong direction? This is what drives behavior change, because now it's not abstract, it's visible. And from an employer perspective, this is what helps sustain engagement across your covered lives. It's not just a one-time screening event. It becomes something employees come back to. So we'll wrap up and we will get to some questions. But Leslie, what we want to get through is, what does this look like for your organization? So we can start with a pilot. We can pick a population. We can launch quickly. We literally can launch this within a week because of the quick format that we have using the web browser. Employees can scan. It depends if you want the data or if you want us to have the data as far as the results to treat the patient or the employee. So that level of insight can either be shared with you, it can be shared with your care partner, or we can own it. Or we can be able to get that patient, that employee, to the next level of care. There's no IT lift. There's no hardware. We're happy to do a security review, which we've passed with some of the best health systems in the country, as well as some of the largest enterprise companies. And for advisors, we can typically start with 1 to 2 clients. For employers, this becomes a high engaging entry point into your health strategy. Pilots are live in a few weeks. The question isn't whether this fits. The question is how quickly you want to see this across your covered lives. And if it's one thing that you take away from all of this, is just know that this is 10 times cheaper than your typical biometric screening, and it provides you with about 6 to 8 times more engagement of people doing their screening using our process. And
if I might add to that, one of the things that used to really drive me up a wall about wellness is you need huge incentives or huge penalties to get people to do this. No, you don't.
We drive engagement with the help of the company. So typically, when we sign a company, we end up sending an email to all of the employees, letting them know we're excited to announce that, let's say, Microsoft is partnering with Hibiscus Health to help the employees screen and understand their well-being. And then the link is actually in the email. So that same QR code that you just used, it can be done in a QR code or it can be done in an actual link. They click the link and they do the scan. And in just 30 seconds, that is it. That is why we get 60 to 70% of the company doing the scan and getting screened, because there's no app download. It all begins with just something as simple as a selfie, 30-second selfie. And that's what is engaging. When it comes to workplace fairs or health fairs, we have a kiosk that we can bring or provide. And that kiosk is what Al mentioned that he used at the conference, where they can just come to the wellness fair, use the kiosk, and do the scan there as well. So it's in collaboration with the employer, we are able to get you and get your employer screened very efficiently. So our accuracy, as I mentioned, is about 85 to 90% on the cholesterol, the triglycerides, the hemoglobin A1C levels, and it's about 98% accurate on the blood pressure and the heart rate. When people do the scan, 90% of them have one or more concern. So at the end of the day, even though it's 85 to 90% accurate, also Cologuard, by the way, that's 85% accurate. And something that was really surprising that our chief medical officer told us is that a mammogram is actually 84% accurate. So something as amazing as a mammogram that is supposed to detect breast cancer risk is only 84% accurate. We're hitting 85 to 90%, which is almost as close as an FDA approved product. We do have intentions of going down the FDA pathway in 2028, 2027, 2028. So, but on the validation side, this has been trained on over 10,000 subjects of all skin tones and skill colors. So we are able to pick up all demographics essentially across the board.
You might want to add the part about why you do not use regenerative AI.
Yeah, so we don't use regenerative AI, meaning that when someone does when an employee does the face scan, we do not use that to train the algorithm because it's not helpful to us. We need a very controlled environment where our data set has to have their blood taken immediately after they do the recording of their face, their iris, and their gum lines. And then we also have to have their blood pressure connected as well as a pulse oximeter connected. So our data set has to be trained in a very, very specific manner so that we are able to provide the correlation between blood work as the ground truth and also providing the actual vital.